Hi, Becky.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, everybody. Where in the world in the CPC is Reverend Z? Today I am hanging out with Reverend Elizabeth Daniel. And Elizabeth, where are we today?
We are in Clarksville, Tennessee. And North Clarksville, to be precise,
Okay.
closer to Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Okay.
Clarksville sits on the border of Kentucky, the northern part of the town.
Very cool.
So we are in New Providence is the area,
Okay.
and the church's name is New Providence CPC Church.
New Providence, Cumberland Presbyterian, that's where we are today. So glad you could join us again for our awesome conversation that we're going to have today. Elizabeth, tell me about this church.
This church is a church plant from 1962. We are not that old. Most CPC churches are a lot older than we are.
Right.
So 1962, we were planted by the big church, the Clarksville CPC Church, and started very healthy, and we've been here non-stop since 1962, not without a couple of hiccups along the way, but
Of course.
we're still here.
I think everybody has their hiccups.
Oh, they should.
In our church histories, don't we? I mean, we all have something that we're just like, that wasn't so amazing.
Yeah.
That was not
we
so
have
amazing.
a couple of those, yes.
Understandable. Who were your founding members?
Well, we had several, and I have a list here.
Oh, yay, okay.
But the significant part of our founding members, we have, see my little list?
Yeah.
There are two people, one husband and wife, and now one woman who lost her husband last year,
Okay.
are still with us as founding members.
Wow.
Marie and Ernie, and then a lady named Marie.
Okay.
So they are still here with us.
So they were part of the congregation in 1962
Yes.
when you guys were the new church plant.
Yes.
And
yes.
they're still hanging
And
out.
they're still here.
That is amazing.
Coming regularly.
Wow.
Yes.
That is astonishing.
Yes.
Not many of us churches, especially some of the older ones,
Yeah.
can say that we still have any of our founding members with us. So
Right.
that's amazing that you still have some.
And it's kind of nice. It's a kind of a glue that holds us.
Sure.
Because we're not family founded. We're not rural church. We are, I guess, a city church, but
Right.
yeah, we're definitely not rural. And it's an interesting blend, and these people are very involved still.
That's amazing.
Yes, it is.
That's amazing.
It's a
Now,
blessing.
you were telling me a little bit earlier that one of your founding members, the cross,
Yes.
that is in your sanctuary.
Ernie made that cross out of I think a single piece of wood and he did it out front of the sanctuary upstairs,
Wow.
outside, and in 1962, and it's been hanging there ever since.
And it's a beautiful
Isn't
cross.
it pretty?
Oh, it's gorgeous.
And I love it. Its simplicity.
Yeah.
Just I like simple things. So,
Yeah, and it is absolutely gorgeous.
Yes,
And what a testament for him to still be coming here.
Yes.
And to be able to see this piece that he made that is still hanging here
Yes.
in front of everybody every week.
And we get the joy of it too.
Absolutely. What an awesome thing that is.
Yes.
Now, so you've been here since 1962 in this
This
current
church has,
location.
uh-huh.
This church has, okay. What are some, we talked about the cross a little bit, but do you have any other kind of interesting history tidbits about some stuff about your church?
Well, outside as you walk into the sanctuary entrance, you go up those like 2-3 steps.
Yeah.
To the left is Mary's garden,
Okay.
and a lady from the church wanted a nice little place to sit that was relatively attractive, and so they made this garden.
Wow.
And I'm sure I'm not a good interviewee,
No, you're
so I want to urge you to look at our website,
Yes, okay.
which gives also talks about the history, and also talks about the cross,
Okay.
and talks about Mary's garden and
Nice.
Miss Dorothy's overhang that she left for the church when she died.
That's awesome.
And yes, so little things like that. That's on our website, because I'm
Sure.
sure I'm going to forget some more things.
And what is your website?
Website's a very long name.
Okay.
New Providence, Cumberland Presbyterian Church.com.
Okay. So New Providence, CumberlandPresbyterianChurch.com to look up some more of the history and some of the interesting elements. Make sure you check that out.
Yes, I wasn't smart enough to do any initials. I had to do the whole
The whole
thing.
thing. Yes, that is a little bit to type out, but I think our people can get there.
Well, one of the mistakes you make is you start off doing things, and this was one of them. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. We talked some about, you said you're not really a rural church, you're not really an urban church, you're kind of in between.
Right.
So I'm from a very small town,
yes.
So Clarksville to me is like
it's
ginormous.
It's much bigger than a small town.
So why is it that you consider yourself kind of more of the in-between, not necessarily urban, but not necessarily rural?
Well, New Providence itself is located in farm country.
Okay.
It's a patch of commercial business and commercialness in the middle of agriculture.
Gotcha.
And so it has this rural country feel to it without being rural.
Okay.
Most of the members of my church come from property with more than 3 or 4 acres on it.
Gotcha.
Because it's in the country.
Okay.
But it's in the city limits of Clarksville, so you still have the sense of urban,
Right.
but not really. Clarksville itself is not an urban town. It's
Gotcha.
not a big city, doesn't have that kind of feel to it.
It's really spread out.
It
For
is
those of you that
spread out.
haven't been to Clarksville, Clarksville is like really spread out.
And part of that is because of its agricultural base.
Okay.
We have Austin Peay State University here. We have Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The base is mostly in Tennessee,
Right.
but they got the post office in Kentucky,
Yes.
so everybody thinks it's in Kentucky.
Right.
But Clarksville has incorporated Fort Campbell in the Tennessee section.
Okay.
So part of Fort Campbell is part of Clarksville.
Gotcha.
So we are spread out, and that is another thing. That,
Right.
we take up a lot of land mass.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, really, when you drive through, it's like, is
Yes.
Clarksville ever going to end? I mean, it just keeps going.
Hopefully not.
Forever and ever, So I
Yeah.
can see where it's not really in the country and it's not really an urban setting. So how does that kind of being in between, how does that affect your worship and how does that affect the ministry here at the church?
Well, I've never really ever thought about it or tried to focus on that. What we do is a very informal service,
Okay.
and I think that would appeal to mostly rural areas where you don't want to be quite so rigid. And then, but we do have liturgy. We do have things that we do in worship that maybe more of an urban church service would offer.
Okay.
We don't stand on ceremony in this church.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so when I make lots of mistakes in worship, we laugh it off in worship.
Right.
And we just, well, Elizabeth just messed up again. Elizabeth forgot the special music, let's go back,
Right.
And nobody thinks twice about it.
Right.
Because we bring ourselves to worship, and that is a human, flawed self.
Sure.
So our worship is the same way, and we enjoy worship. We really love to worship because we don't make a pretense of it. We don't make it something that we're not.
Right.
So some services I have no liturgy whatsoever,
And some you have.
and some I have a lot. And so
One of the things I noticed in your liturgy that you were showing me some of the bulletins was that you do for your, I think it's your,
instead of a creed,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
Apostles' Creed or something like that,
yeah, you put in a confession of faith.
a section from our Confession of Faith.
That's amazing. So can you tell our audience a little bit,
Sure.
like what heading I guess you put that under and what the whole purpose of that was?
Well, most of our churches will do a creedal statement, and it's usually the Apostles' Creed,
Right.
one that we know or whatever, and it's a basic summation of our faith.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we were at Pause together,
Yeah.
one of the things that I learned to appreciate so much was our confession of faith, which was written for us,
Right.
specifically for Cumberland Presbyterians,
Right.
and most of us don't know it.
Right.
So instead of doing the Apostles' Creed every week, I put in a section from our Confession of Faith, and it gets rotated up about every 3 weeks or so.
Okay.
So
Okay.
right now we're in section 4.03 or something like that.
Okay.
Right now. And in a couple of weeks we'll go to 4.04.
Gotcha.
And so when in the worship service I say, let's stand and say what we as Cumberland Presbyterians believe.
Right,
And
right.
so that's our creedal statement for that week.
Very good.
Mhm.
So with the confession of faith, that really kind of reaffirms everything that we as Cumberland Presbyterians believe, and it helps instill that in our people. I'm sure you've noticed just as much as I've noticed how often everybody in the church reads the confession of faith.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure you all out there are just, that's like your bedside book, right? You read that every night. So it helps keep us reminded of what it is that we believe and why we believe that. So knowing that that's part of your every week is understanding who you are as Cumberland Presbyterians. What are some other focuses that your congregation is currently working on?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question. I apologize.
No, what are some of the focuses that your church is working on currently?
You mean like
outreach?
Okay, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
Some days I'm thicker than others. Anyway, it's the blonde hair. My brunette sisters tell me.
Nice. That's awesome.
Typical. Anyway, well, one of the things that we are doing is a new thing called Sandwiches in Scripture, which is a Bible study, but it's not your typical Bible study. First of all, we open it up to the community, and we've invited all sorts of different people that might want to come. It's not a pastor-led study. It's not your typical Bible study. I don't teach it, but I do facilitate it for time and content because it's only for an hour during lunch.
Right.
And we want to honor that hour time. So
right, sure.
We feed them lunch, and we have people from our church and from outside of our church who come. And it's not designed to recruit anybody to the church. It's simply to help people deal with Christian issues and specific verses, or like last time we talked about the Trinity, and that was an amazing conversation.
Oh, wow.
Because it was, we don't all understand the Trinity.
Sure.
Obviously, it's a divine concept, and we are not divine.
Right.
But everybody enjoyed challenging each other. And it's a loving discussion group, kind of. So we're doing that. We do food drives, participate in food drives and school drives and things like that. This congregation is an older congregation and cannot physically do a lot of the work of outreach. Mm-hmm. We have partnered with 4 different organizations that do a lot of the outreach and feeding ministries and reaching out to the homeless type things that we cannot physically do.
Okay.
And so we are very blessed with 4 ministry partners who, we have AA, we have a group called Positive Solution Centers who are helping first-time offenders in the criminal court system get on their feet and stay there.
Wow.
And that's, since the pandemic, that's been a slow startup for them, but I'm really excited about that ministry.
Absolutely.
And they will use our building. And we have 2 preaching ministries that are now using our building and our gym. And that's exciting because both of those ministries, for instance, didn't have a church building.
Right.
One of them's building a new facility but won't be ready for 2+ years.
Oh, wow.
And so they needed a place to meet.
Right.
And it was exciting for me when they called me and asked me if they could be a part of that using our building, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Sure.
We're supposed to be helping other churches, other people. And I know that Jesus is blessing these ministries because this is what he called us to do.
Yes.
We're to help one another, love one another,
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm real thrilled with our 4 ministry partners.
Yeah, what a beautiful concept and a beautiful idea when you have a smaller congregation, but that you have the ability, because you have the building, an opportunity to reach out to these other organizations that don't, that give them a place where they can feel safe and where they can come and worship and find Jesus just as much as your people come and find Jesus during their time.
Right.
And I love this idea of this group that's helping the first-time offenders.
I know, it will take off, but right now they're still trying to rebound from COVID. The courts didn't meet, during COVID, and so now they're back and they're meeting, and the judges are learning more about PSC, and so when that takes off, that'll be a huge ministry. It is not designed, PSC is not designed as a Christian ministry, but it is headed up by a very wonderful Christian woman who will we are very happy that
Yeah.
Christian principles will be provided
Right.
for them and
and
give them an anchor to
and giving
survive.
them a safe place to come and
Yes.
to meet and to be able to teach them different life skills and opportunities to hopefully stay out of the court system.
Yes, exactly.
What, you know,
That's
what
the
a
whole point.
huge
Yeah.
blessing that is.
Yes,
That
that
is just absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
So you have got a lot of stuff going on here. I know you kind of feel like it's an in-between church and it's a small congregation, but you have partnered with so many people and
You're
are
blessed.
just doing so many beautiful blessings here in this community here in Clarksville. It is just astonishing to listen and just the joy that I can hear in your voice and the excitement about what God's doing here.
Mhm.
So what are some of your hopes, maybe some plans, your aspirations for this community here?
Well, for the community, the church community, for us to grow, we are a very small church with older congregants.
Right.
And to look to the future, we need to grow.
Sure.
And so I developed a website. It's probably not the best website in the world, but it gets information out
Sure,
there.
yeah.
We're doing more on Facebook so that we can get our name out. We put our special music, our pianist, and we put her special music every Sunday onto the Facebook page so
nice.
people can hear her play because she is a blessing. I'm trying to think of anything. We did a fall festival one year. We called it Fall Fling, and unfortunately, weather brought it inside. But it was a way to introduce the community to us again,
Sure.
and all that, because our church sits off of the road,
Yes.
and you don't see us
Yes.
like you do. In a
I
lot of
drove
churches.
right past it, had to turn
exactly.
around and come back. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So we have to do whatever we can think of to get people to see us and to know we're here.
Sure.
And that's a challenging prospect because the trend for all churches,
Yeah.
not just in the CP church, but all churches are struggling with attendance and
Yes.
having people coming in. And so we're fighting that fight too.
Right.
But you know, God has been so faithful to us.
Mm.
I feel His hand on this church because He's brought us 4 ministry partners.
Yeah.
That's helped us not go under financially.
Right.
And also gives us a great spiritual boost to know we're helping somebody else. I know that God has plans for this church.
Amen.
And we just have to be open to His leading and you know, you said something about feeling the love and the joy. I do. I love
Yeah.
this church.
Yeah.
I love the people here. I love that they don't care that I'm male, female. They don't care that I'm, you know, in the office only 2 days or what. They trust the Lord to provide for them.
Amen.
And that to me is the most exciting part of my ministry.
Yeah.
That it's not about me, it's about Him,
Yes.
and we all revel in that.
Isn't that what it's supposed to be
Yes,
about?
it
should
is.
be about Jesus.
It is.
And what Jesus and what God is doing in our churches and in
Yes.
our lives. And if we exemplify that in our everyday living and just the joy and excitement that we have, I think that's contagious.
Well,
And that will bring people to us. You know,
Yeah,
we just
I
have
hope.
to trust in His timing.
And I've always told God I hate His timing.
That's true.
It's
That's
not
true.
fast enough for me.
That's correct. Absolutely.
I was
Absolutely.
like, okay, Lord, why aren't you acting now?
Oh gosh.
And then when He acts, it's like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Always perfect.
Why am I
timing.
impatient?
Yeah. Well,
I just am.
I think that's something a lot of us
Oh,
struggle
sure.
with. A
Oh,
lot of us
yes.
struggle with.
Thanks.
So we can find out more about you on New Providence, Cumberland Presbyterian Church.com, and your Facebook.
Is just
Is
look
the
up
same?
Cumberland Presbyterian Church. Look up New Providence Cumberland
Okay.
Presbyterian Church.
So New Providence, Cumberland Presbyterian Church on Facebook, or you can find them on the web, either which way. Elizabeth, it has been fantastic to see you again, and
I'm
just
so glad
an
to.
awesome time to have a conversation with you. And
I wish
learn.
you'd come back and visit me
Okay.
more often. I've had more fun just chatting with you.
Very good, very good. We will do that again
Good,
soon.
good.
And thank you, all of our viewers. Join in next time for Where in the CPC is Rev Z. See you again.